I'm already out. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, everyone, for our official welcome to our December Storytelling Showcase here at Mechanics Institute. My name is Alyssa Stone. I'm the Senior Director of Programs and Community Engagement here at Mechanics Institute, and I'm so excited to welcome all of you fabulous faces for this holiday show. Who here has been to Mechanics Institute before? Awesome. Who is here for the very first time? Oh, fantastic! Welcome. I hope it is the first of many visits to our historic building here at Mechanics Institute. For those who are less familiar with us, Mechanics Institute was founded in 1854, so we are a very old nonprofit here in San Francisco. We are a cultural center, historical landmark, gorgeous multi-story, general interest accessible library. If you have not checked out the library on the second and third floors, please do so. It's beautiful. A world-renowned chess program. We are the oldest chess club in the United States, and an events center like we're doing this evening. We have anywhere from 5 to 15 events per week here at Mechanics Institute. Everything from storytelling showcases, author talks, book groups, writing classes, chess classes and tournaments, and all manner of things that you might be interested in. Please come and check out what we have to offer here by visiting milibrary.org. We also offer a free Wednesday tour every Wednesday at noon, and we have an evening tour coming up on Friday, January 19th at 5 p.m. So if it's been a while or you haven't had a chance to explore our incredible building, please come back for one of our tours. It's a wonderful way of learning about our history and our services and seeing all the different interesting nooks and crannies here at Mechanics Institute. I'd also love to invite you back for some of our upcoming programs in January. This is somewhat our finale of our month, of our year of 2023, and what a way to end it. But I'd love for you to turn your mind towards January events. Our cinema series in January, Cinema Lit, is all about chess in the movies. So every Friday in January, come and watch a movie here or join us for an online discussion where we'll be showing our first film on January 5th, Searching for Bobby Fischer. So it's a really exciting theme in January. We also have a brand new program starting on January 9th, our Digital Connections program. So if you are someone who would like to explore more digital tech-savvy skills, our Digital Connections program might be for you. And we have our first author talk of the year on January 11th, where we have our second annual New Year Wellness and Renewal program. So we have a lot of fabulous things coming up at Mechanics Institute. I hope you'll be back. And I'd love to introduce our incredible host for the evening, Corey Rosen. He deserves all the applause and so much more. Corey is a writer, actor, visual effects producer, and storytelling teacher based in San Francisco. He hosts the Moth Story Slams and Grand Slams and has been featured on the Moth Radio Hour, Alice Radio's The Sarah and Vinny Show, and K-Pop's The Finch Files podcast. Corey is a performer at Bats Improv, one of the world's foremost centers for improvisational theater, and is the author of Your Story Well Told, creative strategies to develop and perform stories that wow an audience. He always wows us here at Mechanics Institute. I hope if you're not yet a super fan of Corey Rosen after tonight, you absolutely should be. Please give a warm Mechanics Institute welcome to Corey Rosen.
Keep it going for Alyssa Stone, everybody. Okay, great. Welcome to Mechanics Institute for all of you. And welcome to this showcase that I am so honored and proud to be doing this is, how long have we been doing this? In September?
Many months now.
It's many months now, yeah. So, make that happen. Okay, so I think we started doing this in September, so here's the concept.
No, in May.
It was May?
Our first one was in May.
But we haven't been doing it all summer.
We took a little break, but.
We took a break, so we did one in May, and then next week asked if I would come back and do basically once a month. So this is a monthly series of storytelling. And so what we do is every month I invite different cohorts of people, and it's kind of become, for me personally, a glimpse into all of the aspects of my, what I like to call my lives. Not just my life, but like different parts of my life. In the first month of the show, we had a lot of people that were involved in things like the Moth, which I am a host of. In October, we did nothing because COVID was my life that month, so we did nothing. In November, I have some friends who run a show in Portland called Backbench PDX, which is basically a random storytelling show involving a spinning wheel. Was anybody here for that show? Where the storytellers didn't know what story they were going to be telling, so it was storytellers being basically being spontaneous in the moment and telling stories. So we had Beth Lissick from Porchlight telling a story in that one. We had Casey Clem was DJ in that one. Some people did not like that there was a DJ for that one. It was very loud, so we are having no DJ tonight. And now it's December, and because of October, we're bringing back the October storytellers. So, yes! So let's hear it for the storytellers tonight who have been waiting for 2 months to tell these stories. And so the people that are going to be telling stories tonight represent for me a range of people from my, as I mentioned, my lives. Me personally, I've worked in my career in various places, both in the theater, in storytelling, and in film production. And so what I have done tonight is I've invited people from many of those aspects of my lives, both my theater, live performance world, and my film world, specifically in animation, visual effects, with the prompts tonight of behind the scenes, right? So all of the stories in some way will be connected to a behind the scenes theme. And they may or may not, because remember this was originally going to be October, they may or may not be behind the scenes horror stories. They may not be, but they may be, or they may not. That's the may or may not part of that, is that they may not, or they may. So you understand the rules of that. So don't be disappointed or appointed. Calibrate your appointment meter based on that. So that's what's going to happen. They're each going to be somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 minutes in the story length, and the whole show will be over in an hour, right? Which is not bad for a Wednesday night, right? But here's what I want to do. I'm kind of calling it audible. Sometimes I like to do this. You all seem like nice people, and some of you have come with people that you know. Some of you have not come with people that you know. Sometimes I like to start the show by having the audience tell stories to each other. Are you game for that? Sure. If you're not, you don't have to. But here's what we're going to do. For exactly 1 minute, each of you in the audience, I'm going to invite to turn to somebody near you, and I'm going to encourage you to not talk to someone that you know. It could be somebody that you know or somebody that you don't know. But I'm going to say, if you came with someone and you want to tiptoe out of your comfort zone, turn the other way and encourage them to do that. You don't have to. You can talk to your friend, or you can talk to your cell phone. You can calibrate your experience however you want. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and it's going to be a very interesting exercise, I think, for some of you, is that the challenge is to tell a version of your life story in 1 minute. In 1 minute. And when I say a version of your life story, the thing that I have in mind is that it's impossible to tell your whole life story in a minute. So think about a version of your life story. Maybe your love life story in a minute. Maybe your geographic life story. Maybe your academic career. Maybe it's your pet life story. The pets that you, something that's just like narrow the scope to a topic and tell that life story in 1 minute to somebody near you. So first of all, just identify who that person's going to be, right? So figure out who it is. It could be somebody that you know. It's still a good challenge, even if it's somebody that you know. And when I say start, you're going to tell your life story in 1 minute. Okay, have you found someone? Does anybody need a partner? Raise their hand if you need a partner. Raise your hand. Some people are tearing up here. Good. Good. Anybody pregnancy? Okay, ready? Hold on, ready? Ready? I'm going to start the timer. I'm glad that you want it. Does anybody need a partner? Raise your hand if you want a partner. We have one person. Here, you can be my partner if you don't. Come on over. Okay, ready to begin? And begin now. Is anybody making it in a minute? You do it? No. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so now you're going to switch. So now the other person has a minute. Tell a version of your life story in 1 minute. Okay, ready? Begin now. All right, thank your partner for sharing another minute. Maybe if you were watching on the broadcast, you should tell the story of the person in the room. Maybe your cat or your mouse lives in the wall. So did anybody discover anything about the person that they, yeah? Did anybody discover something about something that they already know that they didn't know before? Isn't that amazing? In 60 seconds, we can learn so much about each other. And that is truly the beauty of storytelling. And that's what we're going to celebrate and explore tonight. So I'm going to tell a personal behind-the-scenes story of my own. I'm not going to start with it because I want to get to our first storyteller. Now that you guys seem warmed up, are you warm?
Yeah.
We're warm. And I'm going to invite to the stage one of my dearest friends in the universe, who I'm just thrilled to know and to welcome to the stage. She professionally works at Pixar Animation Studios, and her name is Leila Chesloff. Please welcome to the stage.
All right, thank you. Oh, sugar. We need water. This is a refreshing environment. Hi. Good, how are you doing? Good to see you. I feel like this is my surprise birthday party. Because my birthday's in 4 days, and I went to Corey a birthday party. Then he arrived on time, and everyone arrived after him. A great surprise. But yeah, I have known Corey since happens, my first day at ILM, and it was the best day meeting you at ILM. So when I started there back in 1996, I was pretty much just, I'd been out of college for a year, and all I wanted to do was write romance novels. That was it, right? That was my goal. I was like, I want to write romance. And my mom said to me, you need to make some money, right? And I had a little apartment in San Francisco. It was like $300 a month rent to share a little apartment underneath someone's house out in the avenues. It was really awesome. So I took a job at this place, ILM. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it did. I didn't know what anyone did there. But one of my friends from improv, Rory Arnold, she said, oh, I work there. You don't want to work there. I said to my mom, I know you have a connection there. Thank you very much. But my friend said I don't want to work there. And my mom said, what have you got better to do? So I said, all right, I'll take the job. I took the job. So I took a job as I was an administrative assistant to the technical assistants. I had no idea what they did, but I said, okay, what's my job? So this woman, Wendy Hendrickson, remember her? She says to me, okay, this is what our job is. You're taking over from me. All you have to do is walk around and just post things on the walls and talk to people. The job is a shed, and there's a mat underneath the desk. You can sleep there. It's crazy. So I said, I'm not doing this. So I walked around and I started meeting with people, and I said, okay, well, the technical assistants are very interesting people. So I started talking to them. They're MIT graduates in computer science. They're Stanford PhDs. All these people. I'm like, you're amazing. And then my future husband, he just, I don't know, got hired, but he's amazing. I totally was in awe of these people. So I said, I want to do what they're doing. So they started training me, teaching me different stuff. I'm like, this is incredible what you're doing. I can do this. So I said to Corey, you know, I want to be a technical director someday, like all these ATs. He said, what, are you crazy? You're crazy. You can't do that. You're an English major. You don't, these are MIT graduates. I'm like, I got this. So I just sort of started following along. What are these guys doing? Learn from them. I mean, I was learning what I found out from the best of the best, right? So this is Kurt. So he gets me on his show as an assistant technical director. I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm loving this. I'm doing whatever they tell me to do. He says, write a script to compress texture. I'm like, okay. No. I'm like, I can do this, right? I learned scripting. I learned all this stuff. Compressing textures. Okay. So I go to my machine. I write a script. I'm good at learning. People can teach me. I'm very teachable. Okay, so I write this script, and then I'm like, oh, it's lunchtime. I'm gonna go for lunch. So I have a nice lunch. You know, everybody loves to have lunch at ILM. It's like pictures of beer, and it's an amazing thing. We used to do swim prom. Okay, that's his story to tell. Okay, so we had a lot of fun during these lunches. I come back, and I notice my machine is just sort of hanging, and something weird is going on. And somebody says, it looks like your machine is swapping. Okay, my machine is swapping. I knew that wasn't a good thing. Okay, suddenly we're getting error messages, a lot of error messages. My machine goes down. Okay, so I reboot my machine. I have to go to Kurt. I have to tell him, oh, I tell you, he used to work for NASA. Okay, Mr. Cool. And I say, listen, Kurt, I have my machine swapping. I wrote this script to write, to compress textures. It was chugging along. And now my machine broke. And he goes, well, did you keep a log file? That's a great idea. I will totally keep a log file next time that I do this, if I keep my job. So he totally, no problem. I fill out, my machine comes back up. I fill out a thing. I'm like, okay, restore backups. Because there are hundreds and hundreds of gigs of corrupt textures at this point on a Friday afternoon. So no vendors are going through, everything is broken in the entire facility. That's how I feel. Star Wars Episode 1, there is no Jar Jar Binks right now, okay? So what happens? This is the moment we realized when I put in this request that the backup system or all the backups no longer work. And they hadn't been working for the past 4 months. They switched to a new system. So Kurt looks at me, Mr. Nassau, in all seriousness, and goes, well, guess we're gonna make new textures now. He doesn't give me any grief, we just go through, we start creating new textures from scratch, no problem, we're doing all this work, everything. At the end of this, he says to me, Lila, we learned 2 things here, right? 1, we're gonna keep a log file, and 2, the backup system doesn't work right now. And I said, oh, thank you so much. And you know what I did in return for Kurt, Mr. Nassau? I introduced him to my childhood best friend, Zara. She's a dentist. And they are married with 2 children now. So romance, my friend. Right now.
First time I've ever heard that story. Incredible. I will explain swim improv. You guys know what improvisation is, right? It's like making up stories and in the moment. So one of the things that we would try to do physically, because when we worked at ILM together, we were very sedentary. We would sit at a desk all day, usually on a computer. It was also the age where we discovered carpal tunnel syndrome, right? And experienced that, where like you're just literally not moving, like you're moving your wrists all day and things are very painful. So we discovered there was a nearby gym to where we worked, which was across the Richmond Bridge. We were in San Rafael at the time to Richmond, California. There's a big municipal natatorium called the Plunge. Any fans? Yes. And so Lila and I also did improv theater together. So one of the things that we would do is we would swim across the pool. We would do laps. And when we would surface out of the pool, Lila would say, once. Then we would swim entirely across the pool, and we'd come out, and I would say, upon. And we would tell a word at a time story at the pace that it would take to go entirely across the pool. So every lap was a word. So you would be sort of like wondering. So it wasn't like the spontaneity of improv, where you were like really in the moment. You had like, someone's 30 seconds to. So then you would deliver the next word. And it was so satisfying, whatever that word was, because you were getting a word every minute or so. Is that how it works?
Yes,
That's how it works. So next time you're swimming with a friend, if you want to tell a very slow story, I highly recommend it. You can tell like maybe like a 25-word story in an hour. All right, are you ready for your next storyteller? Also from my movie career, a friend of mine from the world of ILM and movies, who also has his own rich history in so many aspects, from Clown College in Florida to a brief stint in the circus to working at Universal Studios Hollywood, creating makeup and masks and creating creatures themselves. Please welcome to the stage my good friend, Mark Siegel.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is a behind-the-scenes story, but and some of it's kind of funny, I hope. But part of it, because it was originally scheduled around Halloween, is a bit of a horror story.
Yeah.
In particular for one of the crew members, and it does involve ghosts. Early on in my creature-making career, while I was still working in LA, I had the good fortune to be hired onto the crew of the original Ghostbusters at Bosfield, Richard Edlund's company in Marina Del Rey. And my main assignment would be to work on the puppet for the ghost Slimer. And when I was hired, Slimer was already in progress. Our creature supervisor, Steve Johnson, had already finalized the design. And when I showed up for work on my first day, Steve was already sculpting the main head and body section of what would be the puppet suit. Another artist, Kevin Brennan, was sculpting Slimer's arms, and my first project would be to sculpt the inner parts of Slimer's mouth, the teeth and gums and the tongue. So we took a casting of my arm and hand, and I did the tongue sculpture over that casting, and so the final rubber tongue would fit my arm perfectly, and then I would be the puppeteer whenever the tongue had to work in a shot. Well, as it turned out, the tongue would only need puppeteering for one shot. But this was a really important one. It was the first time the character appeared close up on screen in the scene where Dan Aykroyd discovers Slimer in the hotel hallway, gobbling up food from plates on a room service company. And it was a pretty tricky shot to get, and I'm going to try to describe to you how we accomplished that shot, which is pretty ingenious and kind of funny. But first, before I try to do that, I want to give you a description of how the puppet was constructed and generally how it worked. And you probably noticed by now I have a visual aid. Slimer was overall a very low-tech puppet. It was one big piece, a head and body section, that was cast out of very soft foam latex rubber. Mark Brian Wilson was the lead puppeteer who wore the puppet suit, and he was strapped in with a kind of harness made out of a light webbing. His arms were in the rubber Slimer arms that stuck out through the holes in the side of the body, and Mark would do all the big body and arm movements of the character. The bottom of the puppet came down to about Mark's waist. Below that, he had on a long black skirt, and we shot on a black stage, so all the on-camera puppeteers wore black. The top of the puppet came up above Mark's head. Now, because it was all soft foam latex, we had a fiberglass underskull inside that head, so the head would hold its shape. And to that underskull, we attached Slimer's eyes and the upper palate with the gums and teeth that I had created. And we also attached a few controllers for facial expressions. Now, Mark's head was tightly secured in a custom-fit fiberglass helmet that we could attach into that underskull so that Mark's head would support the top of the puppet. In Mark's face, this is the really important part, Mark's face was directly behind Slimer's big mouth. And we cut holes in the rubber at the back of the throat, covered them with a thin scrim fabric, same color as the interior of the mouth, so that the camera couldn't see in, but Mark could see out through the mouth in order to work. Now, the facial expressions were also pretty low tech. This was a few years before we started using radio-controlled mechanisms. And it was simple bicycle cable controllers, and the cables extended from the head down through the bottom of the puppet, out to the side, connected to controllers with levers. And puppeteers would pull the levers to move the different expressions. And we could move Slimer's eyes back and forth. We could blink his eyelids, pop his eyes out a little bit, wiggle his nose near his upper lips, and move his eyebrows. And for the shots when I didn't have to puppeteer the tongue, I was lucky I got to choose my puppeteering features. And I chose the eyebrows because I saw the most potential for a big comical eyebrow movement. The mouth was also extremely low tech. There was no structure or mechanism at all in the lower jaw. It was just soft foam latex. We did have the plastic gums and teeth mounted inside the mouth. And then just a little metal bar in the center of the lower lip with a rod that extended down through the bottom of the puppet. And a puppeteer underneath, Craig Caton, could pull the rod so he could stretch that mouth really wide open or push it closed or twist it side to side to give a wide range of expressions. And for most of the shots, or all the shots actually, where the tongue didn't work, we had a casting of the tongue that was just attached inside the mouth and you could just flop around. But that eating shot, where Slimer actually had to use the tongue, that got a little more complicated. So this is the setup. On the shooting stage, we had one of the metal rolling stage equipment carts that served as a stand-in for the room service cart. It was stacked with all kinds of plates. Some of them were made out of plaster so that they could break easily. And the plates were piled with all kinds of nasty food. We had like wilted lettuce and chunks of Jello and blobs of mashed potatoes and pasta, some half-eaten slices of pizza, dinner rolls, and other chunks of bread. And Slimer would have to reach out and pick up the plate and dump the food into his mouth, and the jaw would have to work, and the tongue would move around. So because I had to operate the tongue with my arm, I had to be squeezed in like really tightly behind the puppet with my arm and the rubber tongue through a slit in the back of Slimer's head into the mouth. Remember, that's where Mark Brian Wilson's head normally was. In order to make room for the tongue, Mark had to bend his head way down below the mouth. So my arm and the tongue was pretty much sitting on the top of Mark's head. Also, because he was bent over, he couldn't be in his helmet as he normally was. So Steve Johnson, our team leader, was squished in right behind me, intimately behind me, with his arms into Slimer's cheeks, and he could support the head that way. But then he also used his fists to push the rubber cheeks around to give some more movement to the chewing. But most important, because he was bent down, Mark could not look out through the back of the mouth as he normally could. Mark was working completely blind, and working blind, he had to somehow find a plate, lift it way over his head, dump the food into Slimer's mouth, or fall over the tongue while I'm moving the tongue around, making Slimer's lips. And that meant that Mark was actually dumping all of his food onto the back of his own head. Well, he, despite all of this, bent over, blind, food all over him, Mark did a stellar performance. He even added nuanced movements like Slimer casually tossing an empty plate over his shoulder or lifting up his hand to wipe his mouth between bites. And the action was truly hilarious. And by the time we finished shooting, the entire crew was cracking up laughing. Everybody except Mark Van Wilson, who was still stuck, bent over in the puppet, which was not easy to get in and out, with food all over. And after a few moments, we heard this muffled voice coming out of this rubber puppet, "Get me out of here!" Which of course made us crack up even more.
Yeah.
And even though he was very low tech, I mean, Slimer did a wonderful on-screen performance. He was very funny. And as some of us actually predicted while we were shooting the puppet, Slimer became a really popular character, even got his own animated cartoon show, and reappeared in Ghostbusters too. And I just have to say that in my nearly 40 years as a creature maker, working on the original Ghostbusters was some of the most fun I've ever had working on a movie.
One more time for Mark Siegel. Mark has now retired from creating creatures for movies, but is an incredible storyteller. I love it every time I see you. And are you still ever at Walt Disney Family Museum?
I go as often as I can.
Okay.
I volunteer there.
You volunteer.
Since COVID, they've cut back a lot of volunteer because I volunteer for special events.
If you ever see Mark, if you're ever at the Walt Disney Family Museum, because he is full loads of Disney stories as well.
It's a 5-hour tour.
You can. Exactly. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and we will move along to another. This is like a tour of my favorite people in the world. The next storyteller is one of the first people that I met when I moved to the Bay Area. I was a college student still at the time. I was an intern, and I became fast friends with him. Maybe 2 short years later, we were roommates, or we were roommates for 10 years. And so this is someone who I know a lot about and have a deep, deep history. He is honestly one of my truly best friends in the world, and is himself an incredibly gifted and talented designer, filmmaker, storyteller in every sense of the word. And I'm not going to tell too much. You're going to hear from him the words of George Hull. Give it up for George Hull.
You guys can hear me all right? Yeah. Yeah, my story is going to be start the opposite of Leila. Because she didn't know anything about ILM. I have been dreaming about getting a job at this place my entire life. I started off in industrial design, I went into cars, I basically had this moment where I was like, I'm doing whatever I can to get into ILM. So my story starts off, I'm 20 years old, early 20s, and I find myself, I get to my treatment, and my first big opportunity is to become the visual effects art director, and I'm assigned to work on the movie Mission Impossible. And I think, oh my God, this is amazing. I finally got to the big times, and I find myself invited to fly to London to a meeting with Tom Cruise, Brian De Palma, and the visual effects supervisor, my boss, John Knoll, who's famous himself for, inventing a small program called Photoshop. So this is like, the big shots. And I'm literally only there to draw some images to help these big guys figure out an action sequence. So in the script, there's scripts can be like, and then a battle ensues, and they just leave it, and they leave it to figure out later. So in this script, there's an action sequence where Tom Cruise is our good guy. He's on a train, on top of a train with a bad guy, and there's a bad guy in a helicopter pursuit. And they know that they want this action sequence, the train to go into the Channel Tunnel, between England and France, and this helicopter to be chasing after Tom, and there to be this explosion and crash, and Tom just narrowly escapes death with this helicopter in his tunnel. But they can't figure out why a helicopter would ever go inside a tunnel. So we're at this meeting, it's this gorgeous hotel, and it's this exclusive, and a couple hours go by, and they're kicking around ideas, and all of a sudden Tom goes, well, does anyone have any ideas? And in my head, this excitement surges through my veins. I see my success montage going through my head. I say this genius idea. Everyone is like, who is this guy? And they recommend me to top directors, and I'm on the cover of Time magazine. And I'm like, all this while I'm thinking about this, I've thought of 0 ideas. And then Tom goes, okay, I've got it. And I'm like, shit, I haven't thought of anything. And he goes, I got it. The train is racing to the tunnel, racing. And the helicopters, behind them. And at the last minute, the train goes in the tunnel. At the last minute, the helicopter has nowhere to go, and pulls up. He's like, I've seen helicopters do it. It does this giant loop-de-loop. At the end of the loop, it has nowhere to go but into the tunnel. And I'm so jacked up to say my great idea. I just say the first thing that comes to mind, and that is, well, that doesn't make any sense, Tom. And I see my boss looking at me with big eyes. I even see Brian De Palma looking at me because Tom Cruise is the producer of this movie. He's hired Brian De Palma. No one said, there was a reason why no one said anything during that time. Because he's the commander of the show. And I'm like, I think to myself, did I say that out loud? I have to keep going with this. And I'm like, well, why would a helicopter at the end of a loop decide to stay on trajectory and go in the tunnel? And what is a loop-de-loop? I mean, isn't that just a loop? I'm like, and my boss is like, give me the eyes. Stop talking. So after a bit of a pause, to Tom's credit, he goes, the kid's got a point. Let's keep working on this. So what happens in the film is that Tom, eventually they come up. Tom hooks this cable onto the train and forces it into the tunnel. And there's, if you remember the movie, he's on the nose of the train, and the helicopter crashes, and a blade just barely comes into killing Tom. But I think to myself sometimes that if it wasn't for me opening my big mouth, there would be a giant loop-de-loop. Also known as a loop. In that franchise. So there's that. Thank you. One more time for George Hall. One of hundreds of stories that George has about productions. And that was not George's last helicopter movie. George also, I can now brag, designed, if anybody's a fan of the new Dune movies, the Ornithopter helicopter was designed by that guy. So anybody is a super fan of that and of Legos, you can own that as a Lego. Has it come yet, George? Have you got your Lego?
It comes out in February.
Fantastic. All right, thank you, George. And let's move on. We have 2 more acts. Our next one is also one of my favorite people. It's only favorite people. Like if you're a fan of this show tonight, I want to encourage you to come back again. We do this every month. It is always always the last Wednesday of the month. Except right now, which is really not the last Wednesday of the month. But our next show will be the last Wednesday in January, which is actually the last day of January, the 31st. I've invited another group of my favorite people. The theme of that show will be pets. Pets, they will all be pet stories. And you can probably tell from that I'm running out of ideas. So I want to encourage also everybody, if you have an idea for an upcoming show, to visit my website, which is just CoreyRosen.com, or on social media, StoryRosen. And tell me what to do. Tell me what kind of show you would be interested in seeing and coming back for, please. All right, so moving on with the show, our next storyteller happens to be among many incredible accomplishments in his life. He's one of the founders of Bats Improv. Bats Improv, which is the longest and most successful theater or improv theater company in San Francisco, if not the West Coast. One of the co-founders of Bats Improv, and now still in its, what are we in our 35th?
No.
Seventh year.
37.
37th year of doing improv theater. Bats Improv is located in Fort Mason Center, where every weekend we do live improvised shows. He's also a stage actor. He's also an incredible teacher and performer, and runs a company called Fratelli Bologna, if anybody is a fan of their incredible work. I'm going to say less and just let him do the talking. So please welcome to the stage,
All right.
William Hall.
Things that go on behind the stage, unexpected, unwelcome sometimes, can make all the difference. My father was an Episcopal clergyman. He wasn't always an Episcopal clergyman. Before that, he was an advertising man. It said that in his passport. He was a young man. It said advertising. He told me the story of that transition. He said, Bill, that was Bill back in those days. He said, Bill, I worked for this ad agency and they gave me this big account to work on. I did marketing research. It was a big deal. S.C. Massengill. I had to do marketing research for douche.
Yeah.
He said, they didn't understand who bought it, why they bought it, what they think he did. That's not my job. Coloring the packaging. So that program, that project took a year. It's finally over. The boss congratulated us. Great work, Bob. Fantastic work. I got a new client for you, a new product. Enema.
No.
In that moment, it was crystal clear to my dad that there are better reasons to stay awake at night than wondering what color to make enema to make really hot. So he left that job, went back to school, and became an Episcopal clergyman. One summer, years later, 4 boys later, he was the director of a summer camp in the Shenandoah Valley. If you've been to the Shenandoah Valley, it's remarkably beautiful. It's just so rural. It's just so, it's nestled in this valley, so it's undisturbed. I mean, it's just beautiful. We were like way out there. Well, my dad decided that he was going to take all the kids, at 13 years old, for a canoe trip down the Caitlin River in West Virginia. 9 canoes, big van, a couple of vans, a kayak, and an older guy, 16. My mom too. So we're unloading the canoes, getting into the water. It's raining a little bit. We don't care. We're kids. We're gonna camp out on the river. We're gonna camp out. We're singing our songs, we're paddling. It's just beautiful. It's majestic. West Virginia. It's incredible. As nice as the Shenandoah Valley is, this is like untouched. It's just, we're not seeing any houses. We're canoeing along. Beautiful, just beautiful sights, just gorgeous. We're like giddy, like we're like out here on our own. Of course it's raining, but that's not a big deal. We set up camp that night, set up our tents in the rain, and eat dinner in the rain, and then sleep in the rain. In the morning it's raining, so we back up in the rain. So it's just so beautiful. It's so exciting to be there on our own. We're wet. Okay, it's all right. Okay, we got good old raisins and peanuts. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it rains that day, and it's we camp in the rain. Set up camp in the rain. We sleep in the rain. We wake up in the rain. Pack up in the rain in the morning, and everything is wet. We're paddling along, and it's no longer like, look at this beautiful stuff. It's like, when is it going to stop? For God's sake. So something snapped in me, and I go up to next to my dad, I got up next to my dad, and I looked at him, and with all the seriousness, like a 14-year-old boy can muster, I looked at him and I said, Dad, this isn't funny anymore. My dad never wanted to miss a moment. He takes a deep breath, he takes the paddle, puts it across the gums right there. He looks at it and he says, it's just in this beautiful, quiet tone, he says, what would you like me to do about it? And in that moment, he let me in. I was an adult now. I was no longer a kid. He just opened the door, and everything changed. Everything changed. And now knew Daddy couldn't fix everything. Mommy couldn't fix everything. Well, we were all pretty wet. We were looking for a place to camp at night because we didn't pass any towns. They said it was rural. We was like nowhere. We're going to the rapids and stuff. Finally, we find like this like hill, uphill, about 8 feet or so. And it's a standing roof, 4 posts, a concrete slab, and a roof. So we camped there. And Dad argues with himself about whether or not to use the wood because it's not ours. It's his thing. And he decides, oh yeah, we can use the wood. We had a fire that night. Tents, no purpose putting those up. So we put out our sleeping bags. We're all on this concrete slab, at least out of the rain. I wake up the first thing in the morning, my feet are wet. I open my eyes. I go, there's water. Hey everybody, look, there's water. Look around. There's water all around us. And look over where the river is. And I don't see a river. I don't see a bank. I just see the flowing water. The water's come out that high.
Oh, God.
I'm like, guys, look. It's alarming. And my dad turns to me and says, all right, Bill, you and Ben, I want you to go find a town. There's a little town. I think it's that way. Call our camp, send a van, then come back and find us, lead us to where you are, and we'll get out of here. Now I'm an adult. I am running through the woods with a sense of urgency with this older boy. And we're like in a booking. We're trying to find this thing, man. We're going to people's backyards, like, oh, we get close to a town. Find the town, little town. It's not really even a town, it's unincorporated. It's nothing but a couple of shops. So we phone them and they say, we'll meet you there. Send the vans. We go back and find dad and the kids, mom. We lead them through the woods, back to the backyards, get to the town, get to the bridge. We see the vans on the other side of the bridge. The bridge is covered with water because the waters overflow the banks and it's rushing past. And we're seeing trees and stuff. I mean, it's like a thing. My dad does this thing where he's lock arms. Slowly we're making our way across. My brother drops a penknife. Why is he holding a penknife? I don't know. He said, why are we holding a penknife? I don't know. He goes, I'll get it. No, you won't. And we make it across. We get into the van. We go back to the camp. Get into fresh, warm, dry clothing. We have a nice meal. We calm down and come back to who we are. It was just an experience that happened to us. It was a day later, the sunshine was out. It's like it never happened. Our bellies are full. It's like something that happened to us. It's not real. Sunshine. Dad said, we gotta go back. Dad, why? The canoes. We gotta get those canoes. They weren't ours. All right, Dad. Get in Dad's car. We drive back there. Make our way through the backyards, up into the woods. As we get up into the woods, my mom, my dad, and I, cloud passes over. We're walking. Temperature drops a little bit. Wind picks up. Now it's just all clouds over. And I remember the three of us stopping. I don't remember us talking very much. But I remember the three of us looking at each other going, turned around and we walked back to the car.
Oh.
We talked about it a little bit later. It was a feeling of, I let you go once, and not back.
Thank you. Life happens not on stage, but behind the scenes. These big moments that change everything. But those moments can give us crystal clear vision of how the world works. It changes in an instant. And for that reason, I hope you all have these unwelcome, unplanned, horrible things happen.
Here we go for William Hall. Before I bring up our last storytelling, I'm going to tell a brief story of my own that's kind of on the theme that we've been talking about. You've heard a number of stories about people in the film industry and the visual effects industry, and mine is similar in that vein. Something that I was always impressed with in special effects and visual effects, attention to detail, right? Like having an incredible eye and training that eye to spot even the smallest imperfections in everything. When I started in this business, I was very young. I didn't know much about it. In fact, I had the good fortune to start it at the company that people talk about, Industrial Light and Magic, right at this transition period where things were becoming a little bit less of the handmade, painted, crafted, puppeted creatures and starting to develop into the digital realm of computer graphics and animation. And what that meant is that since we were still shooting everything on film, there was this analog to digital handoff that had to happen. And all of the film would get scanned into the computer and then handed to the computer graphics department. Along the way, they discovered that the film was imperfect, that things were not right. And as a company that valued itself on attention to detail, a department emerged from this that I, being a very junior and nascent person in this field, found myself in the good fortune to be hired as a dirt remover. Dirt remover, yes, the lofty position of being a digital version of a gem. That I would look at each frame of the film and scan it for little imperfections. Now this might be a scratch or a smudge or a hit of dirt that had gotten on the negative that when it got scanned would create a little white pop on the screen. And so in order to do this, we would use a program that was like a proto version of Photoshop, and you would look at one frame at a time. And you would scan through it at an incredible zoomed in. And you would scan through the film until you saw something that looked like it didn't belong there. And then you would paint it out and move along. Just like maybe Windexing your table, it doesn't use a lot of your brain to do this kind of process. So I would listen to a lot of books on tape. I would listen to a lot of music. I was occupying my brain otherwise while I was kind of in the other side of me scanning through this in the glorious film industry, cleaning film one frame at a time. And the first project that I was brought on to do this process for was a remarkable one. It was the movie that kind of made me want to be in the entertainment industry in the first place. It was the special edition of Star Wars, right? So I got to work on Star Wars, a movie that came out when I was a child. Now I'm working as a professional being paid to clean Star Wars. One dot at a time. And one of the first shots that I got to do this on, a star field. I'm not kidding. A frame of film that was nothing but white dots. To determine which white dot did not belong and which did was a very important position. I had to go through frame by frame to eliminate all of the white dots. My next shot after I got through the Starfield sequence was, and it was a very important shot, it was the opening shot of the movie where the Star Destroyer is coming and chasing it. It was very exciting. But the next shot that I got to work on was even more exciting to me because it was a shot that had been eliminated from the original movie. It was being added back into the special edition of Star Wars, which was a scene, a deleted scene between Han Solo and, yes, Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt, the famous, bad guy of Tatooine, who was talked about but never seen until Return of the Jedi. And now we're actually going to see Jabba the Hutt in a piece of film that was filmed back in the 70s with a very probably angry actor who was in the biggest movie of all time and was cut from the film, right? He was this Irish actor who was wearing kind of like a big brown tunic, kind of like a toga. Do you remember that at all? Yeah. And so he was filmed, and he had this whole scene that was eliminated from the movie. And then later, when his character showed up, he was completely replaced by a giant slug. Of course, everybody knows what job of the HUD is. So my job was to clean that scene, and of course, we were going to replace this guy with the slug again with computer graphics. And so I'm going through and I'm listening to my books on tape, and I'm cleaning, the thing, and I'm listening to things, and I come to like a little piece of white. Done, I remove it, and I keep going, and I'm going through until I've removed all of the dirt, and then I go to this little view station, what do we call it? Yeah, and we would play it back, and I noticed in my shot, I'm scanning it for little white dots, and I see, nope, I've done a pretty good job, but there's one thing that I did that I shouldn't have done, which is that there was a consistent white dot that I removed consistently from every single frame that wasn't actually dirt at all. It was Harrison Ford's ear. Like every time I come to it, there was like this little speck of something, and I thought that it was dirt, so I painted it out. And I didn't know until I played the whole thing back that I had actually removed his ear. Now, I'm so young and so green on the job that I'm afraid at this point. If they find out that I did this, I'm screwed, I'm fired, I'm out of here. So I let it go. And I went to Daly's the next morning, what we call D Theater, right? The D screening room. And I'm sitting there with these idols of mine, people who have shelves full of Academy Awards for their incredible attention to detail. And they're looking at my shots in silence. Looks good. Next shot. And I said nothing. And so in the movie Star Wars, ladies and gentlemen, there is a scene where Han Solo has no ear. And I learned something very important that day. Despite the fact that I feel like in some small way I ruined Star Wars. I also realized that while attention to detail is a very important attribute of any craft that we do, the bigger lesson is what detail? Because if anybody is looking at Harrison Ford's ear, you're clearly looking at the wrong thing. Thank you very much. Okay, are you ready for the last storyteller? Fantastic. Well, we have something very unique and iconic coming up, and I am thrilled to welcome him to the stage. So I will say no more than to introduce the one and only, your finale for tonight, Rez Graham!
7:38.
Banging. Well, guess what? We're not going to use the mic right now. Yeah, we don't have any banging.
I am a stage actor, so that's why I'm going to stand here and stage project to you. Also, I move around a lot. That's what I do. My name is Rez Graham, and since I got no introduction, I'll briefly introduce what I do. I know Corey through Dutch Improv and through just improv and performing in general. I'm a performer, but I spent a lot of my career doing games and working in games. So I've been working in video games since 2005. So for however long that is, 18 years or something. This is a story from a game that you may have heard of. It's called The Sims 4. Okay, great. I think some of you have heard of it. I was the lead AI programmer on that game. And when I first arrived, the production cycle was not ideal. Here's briefly how games work. You have a designer or a set of designers, and they make things. So a designer will say, okay, I am going to make the relationship system. People need to have relationships. We want fathers, mothers, people who are in love, platonic love versus romantic love, all these things. I said, okay, that's what I want. Now I'm going to need to pull in some engineers and some artists and some sound people and production and everyone. So we pull all these people in, and then we make the thing. That's not how it works at EA on The Sims 4. The way that it worked is that the designer would come over here and say, okay, I'm going to make this thing. I'm going to work really hard on it, and okay, now I'm going to talk to some of my other designer friends, and okay, now what do you guys think of it? Okay, good, I'm going to rewrite some stuff. This is all on paper. Okay, now I think it's ready. So the next step is to go to the Council of Design Gods and say, here is my design. They say, we shall schedule you for 3 days hence. Instead of 3 days hence, they arrive, and the design gods are eating grapes and drinking wine, or whatever designers do, and they look at it, and then they say yes or no, right? It's a very gladiator thing of one of those things, like they sit there and it's approved or not. If it's not approved, they go back and they redo it. And this happens a few times. This entire process can take them days, weeks. So then what happens? Well, then what happens is it's approved, and they celebrate. All the designers gather around, and they all sing songs and pull out boots and things like that. They shove it into the barrel of a mortar, and they launch it all the way over to where we are, the gameplay engineers. That lands here, and we're sitting there stroking our beards and solving problems that nobody had. And we look down and we see there's a design here. Yeah, this isn't even going to remotely work. Okay, so we go and we redline a bunch of stuff and we say none of this is going to work. We have our own mortar. We launch all the way over here, back to design, and they look at it and they go, oh shit, I guess it's not going to work. And this happens over and over and over. It could take a month for something like this to go down. It was terrible, right? It's not a fun thing to go through. And it didn't create so much a wall between us. It created a rift between us. That's the much better word. We were not only, we probably could have talked to each other, we worked in the same building, but we were actively discouraged from it. No, let them go through the design review process. That's what it's there for. Senior design leadership wants to hold on high and say, this is what needs to happen. So that's what happened for quite a while. It was like that. There are all sorts of things. And then one of the problems that we were solving that nobody asked for example, was engineers were like, I don't know how much money this is costing the company. Let's do some back of the napkin estimates and see how much this stupid piece is costing the company. And I laugh about it now, and we kind of laugh and joke about it now. But it wasn't a good thing. It was a nightmare. We were miserable. We were frustrated. The engineers were frustrated. We were there going, why is it like this? But that was just us. That was not the designers though. They felt something very different. I want to give you a little taste of what the designers felt, because their experience was quite different. I'm going to do that with a visual aid. As they drop everything on the floor. Corey, you have a design that you're going to come through. The way that designs are done is someone is going to say, you are the next one on the list. So you're the next one who needs to have a design. Do me a favor, as I go down the side, just tell me to stop.
Stop.
Right here?
Yep.
You're sure?
I'm sure.
This is the design that Corey came up with. This is him. This is not anyone else. Corey, you must design a 9 of hearts. That is your job.
All right.
You think that you can design the 9 of hearts?
I can clean the dirt off.
Can you though? Stop. Can you? Because I'm sure there's all sorts of forums out there that are like, how does it appear? I wonder who that was. And he did a good job, I think. It's a 9 of hearts. It looks like a 9 of hearts. It works like a 9 of hearts. This is what you all see. We see this. So we engineers look at this and we're like, this is never going to work. This isn't going to be a 9 of hearts. It's all wrong. So what the designers heard from us, whether or not we're saying, is you are terrible. You can't design anything. Your design will never work. You're bad and you should feel bad. That's what they heard. Because of course that's what they heard. What else could they hear? We sat there and we went back and we said, I don't know what the camera angles are. And we said, look, here it is. Here's one reason it won't work. Here's another. Here's another reason. Here's another reason. These are all the reasons why it won't work. I don't even see that. So we take what is left of your shattered dreams and designs. And we put it away. We put it away in the box of shame. This is why I chose Corey, because I'm not really okay with it. I thought it was on stage. We put it into our box of shame here, just like this. Now you have a little thing right there, right? You have a, here. What I want is for you to take this pen, a little mark, like you can sign it.
Like the front part or the back part or anywhere?
It doesn't matter, front part, why, yeah, that works, it doesn't matter. Alright. We leave the box of shame over there, I don't want to be near, right? What's that? So that's what they heard. And that's the problem. And that's a huge problem, right? The communication was the actual issue. We weren't actually saying that to them. We were saying it won't work for these reasons because this is how our game is set up. They heard everything is bad and they've literally torn everything apart, but that's not the reality.
Yeah, sure. I'm not a plant.
You actually have no idea what I was doing. If you want to use some words, we can. Don't you for that?
Yeah.
What I want you to do is I want you are a truth sayer. Because the thing is as an engineer, I had an experience. As a designer, they had an experience. I want you to take the truth of what's in that box, all the pieces of your torn and destroyed design, and I want you to dump it out for everyone to see. You can hear it.
Yeah.
Just shake it. You can hear it in there. Yeah. All the pieces, all together. Okay? That's the reality.
What the?
Hold it up for everyone to show. Unfold it. That's the reality. It's not perfect. It'll never be perfect. But it's close. Much closer than they thought. Probably much closer than we thought. Corey, I gave you a little piece of paper.
Yeah.
Would you take your receipt from that piece of paper? Because the thing is I could have just put a card in there. But I didn't. I'm not touching anything anymore. As soon as I touch things, people are like, he's a magician. He's doing magic. Would you pass the card up front and then you pass it around everybody? Everyone touch it. Okay. If that corner perfectly matches. Things are not always what they seem.
All right, so keep going for Res Graham. Did not Res is a video game designer, engineer, also a very talented magician and improviser. You can find out more about him on his Facebook page, Res Graham. That is our show. So let's bring up to the stage all of our performers. And while they are coming up, I want to give it up for Mechanics Institute, this wonderful institution that if you are thinking about making holiday gifts, give a subscription, give yourself a membership to Mechanics Institute, right? Join this awesome place. The long play chess. Let's together. Yeah, finish talking. No, the picture is more important than anything.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Woohoo!
All right. Oh, that's Alyssa Stone. Give it up for Alyssa. Some applause for our volunteers and staff in the back. As for Martin Siegel's wife. Oh, for my wife, Jenny. For you all, thank you for coming tonight. We do this every month, and I would love it for you to come back, bring friends. Check out CoreyRosen.com to find out upcoming things, who the casts are going to be, and also let me know what we should do in the future because we have more shows next year. A delight to see you all. Thank you for being here. Keep telling stories. Have a safe journey home and through the holidays, and thank you.
Thank you.